You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back again one final time for all you on-demand folks here. Yes, it is time for Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the ever-engaging, ever-entertaining, hopefully enlightening, lots of E adjectives you can throw in there, Options Insider Radio Network. If you like what you hear, Vol Views, anything else we do throw some stars or a like or a comment, whatever your platform lets you do. Remember, it's available just about anywhere you can get audio, and some places you can get video, and some places you can get audio books, so lots of places you can get the old Vol Views. And then, of course, if you want to go above and beyond, we've had a lot of great guests. We just had Scott Nations on recently. He's been in the Pro Q&A. In fact, we can't keep that guy out of the Pro Q&A. That guy is knocking down our door to come back and answer your questions all the time. He loves it. A lot of people love it. You want to check out those Pro Q&As for yourselves. You want to go, of course, and get access to options oddities. So maybe you don't want your broadcast week to end right now with Vol Views. You want to come back for a little bit of the old options oddities, break down the weird and wild week from an unusual activity perspective. Man, there's some crazy prints going up even today. Or, of course, you want to get your name in the hat for all of our giveaways, live access to this, everything else we do. Only one place to begin that journey to the dark side, listeners. I know it is a dark side, but it is a fun dark side. Red lightsabers and all. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. Or for you cool kids, you need the old velvet rope. You need to be exclusive /secret club. But don't tell anybody that second one. That's just for you. You know who I'm talking to. And since we're talking about dark side, let me welcome on my cohort, my partner in all things volatility crime, the greasiest of meatballs himself, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. Mr. Meatball, welcome back to the program. What is your preferred lightsaber color, sir?
I like the purple lightsaber.
Oh, you're a Mace Windu fellow.
It's the toughest one.
You think because you're so badass you could rock a violet / purple?
Part evil, part not evil. That's me in a nutshell.
You're so powerful you dare someone to mock your violet lightsaber. That's what it is. I like it. I wasn't expecting you to go there, but I like it. What is your favorite? That might be a fun flash poll to put out during the show. What is your favorite color of lightsaber? As we keep on rolling, you know me, listeners. Of course I'm going to rock the red lightsaber. Got to go dark side all the way. Let's see if Vol is off to the dark side or not, because it's time for the volatility review.
It's time to break down the latest developments in the volatility trading world. It's time for the Volatility Review.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Volatility Review, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down the week that was and indeed still is from a vol trading and trending and analysis and unusual activity. And man, vol's still popping off. Vol doesn't stop just because the show starts out there. We got another one of those days, listeners. It's one of those weeks. It's one of those years, quite frankly. The market is in just a whipsaw-y kind of mood. It's going to start off one way. It's going to give you a little bit of the old head fake, a little bit of the old crossover, and then it's going to go dramatically in the other direction. We've seen that play out quite a few times this week, and it seems like it is playing out yet again. When we kick things off, the markets were still in the teeth of their tailspin from yesterday. They were selling off again. We got back down below the 43.5 level in the S&P. Let's see, how low do we? Looks like about 43.45 or so in the early session. Then the worm started to turn. Folks started saying, you know what? This is too much. Selling it off roughly 200 handles from that 45.50 level we were at not too long ago. We have to buy this market with both hands. So they started scooping it up and drove us all the way back up, listeners, to not quite 43 3/4, right around 43.72, somewhere in that range. That seems to be it, at least for now. They seem to have spent their upward force, and the market kind of vacillating and drifting back down now. So it's still off about 0.2%, about 43.61 or so when we kicked off the show out there in the S&P. So once again, a lot of living under our belt before we even commenced operations here on the show. So before I even get into it, listeners, that given the topsy-turviness, the vacillations, the whipsaws, the dark side we've seen on the screen for a lot of this week, vol is going to be a little bit frothier, a little bit juicier than it was this time last week. Exactly how much frothier, how much more effervescent is the vol this week? Let's find out, listeners. VIX, when we kicked off the show, 17.5, up almost exactly 2 points, 1.9 points from where it was on the show last week. So all of us had upside in our crystal ball. I don't think any of us had a 17 handle. I think most of us were in a 16 handle. So we'll see if this little bit of effervescence can maybe come in a little bit and my crystal ball can look oh so nice by the end of the show. VVIX, by the way, if you're wondering how high did VIX get in this sell-off this morning, kissed a 19, very close to it, right around an 1890. So we got pretty frothy earlier in the show, listeners, earlier in the day, I should say. And then, of course, giving a lot of that juice back right now, but still up net on the week. VVIX also looking frothy. VVIX at about a 102. So, when VVIX is back in triple digits, you got to sit up. You got to pay attention, listeners. We got up to nearly a 110 in the VVIX this morning as well. So things are frothy. Still 102, nothing to sneeze at. We were at a 100 even last week, so up about 2 points in net on the week. And VOLQ, the NASDAQ vol, 2065 when we kicked off the show, up a little over one, about 1.2 points from where it was this time last week. All right, Mr. Meatball, a lot to unpack, a lot going on this week, a lot of whipsaws, a lot of head fakes out there in the market this week. I hope you're not too dizzy to talk on the show today. What was catching your eye out there in this tumultuous week of vol?
Well, it's all been the bond market that has been causing the volatility. The 10-year got absolutely smoked this week. The 30-year had it even worse. There's some issues in China. Evergrande declaring bankruptcy. So this has all been kind of pushed by the credit markets more than it's been pushed by, earnings or anything like that. We have seen this pattern of if you get a big rally into your earnings, they're probably going to sell it ahead of time. And if you don't, you're going to get, you can actually reap the rewards of good earnings. Thus, Target bad earnings, but had already been in the toilet. They buy it. Walmart, great earnings. But what do? They dump it. And Deere, again, today, Deere getting smoked. But they had good earnings. Now, who did not have good earnings is Farfetch. I think Farfetch is not long for this world. It is off 40% today.
They had the mother of all footprints going up this morning. That's going to take up some time to parse all that flow on options oddities coming back a little bit later, listeners. So join us in the secret club if you want a deep dive into that. But that might get our crazy put-palooza of the year out there for Farfetch. I mean, people who don't even track unusual activity are hitting us up about that one, saying, hey, what's up with this? So when even the low-hanging fruit folks can see it from a mile away, that this is the mother of all prints. So, Mr. Meatball, that is kind of your wheelhouse. I've joked before here, your two Venn diagrams of options flow and high fashion kind of intersecting there. So from your outlook, from your perspective, the outlook no bueno there for Farfetch, huh? Would you be buyers of those mega puts that are going up?
It looks tough. They don't have, I don't know, how is their model differentiated from TJX would be my question. You look, TJX is absolutely executing. It's gone straight up. The stock chart looks phenomenal. And then they bought it because their earnings were so good. But Fetch, maybe they become an asset of, that would be a good asset for a firm like TJX to take because they have the inventory. But this is not this company is in peril, and I worry for their 6,728 employees.
Yes. Fascinating stuff. Speaking of fascinating stuff, sir, our keen-eared producer, given our fun little debate there at the top of the show, did put out a fun flash poll only for the duration of the show. So you should be listening live, listeners, and you should definitely be following us over there at Options for this fun, highly contentious content. You know what they asked, Mr. Meatball? They said, what is your favorite color of lightsaber? Inspired by our debate here on Vol Views. They gave them three choices and the infamous other: red, blue, green. And then for our purposes, Mr. Meatball, we'll count other as your violet or whatever you want it to be. Right now, it is evenly split with red, green, and blue. Red, green, and other. Take no votes for blue, no love for blue, no love for Obi-Wan out there. Does that surprise you, Mr. Meatball? So I guess you could say you're tied for first.
I mean, my second favorite would be the green one. I was always a fan of the green lightsaber. Never really loved Obi-Wan's lightsaber. I didn't think it was that great. Blue. What does blue say? Blue's a sad color, right? It's a quiet color. I paint a room blue so that I go to sleep, not because I want excitement. Green. Now that's a color I can get on board with. That's the color Kermit the Frog. Maybe
blue, you want to lull your opponent in a little bit of a false sense of security. Maybe he gets a little sleepy and then bam, off with an arm. And then you're off to the races. But you're right, probably not an accident. Yoda, green, Frank Oz, green, a little bit of Muppet crossover there. So yeah, probably not an accident. Green moving into the pole position now, taking half of our votes, sir. So we shall see. This is playing out only during the show, listeners. So get in there at Options. We also have our actual question of the week, which we could get to a little bit later, a little bit more germane there, but a fun one, a fun little flash poll cooking out there as we get on out to see what's cooking in the land of the volatility surface, listeners. Of course, since the last time we spoke, that AUG future rolling off the board, SEP now slotting in to the pole position, looking a little bit juicier than it was this time last week. The ability of that front portion of the curve to catch a bid is always impressive. And that SEP future up a little over a point right now, about 1.07 to be precise, when we kicked off the show. But the October future, also with the interesting nature of how the front two futures kind of moving in lockstep a lot these days. Usually you see the magnitude of the move exemplified and exacerbated a little bit more in that front future. These days, we've seen a lot of those front two futures kind of moving in lockstep. Seen that again this week. The AUG future saying, hey, don't forget about me, up nearly a full point itself, about 0.95. So not much separating the September and AUG future, at least from a net movement perspective. About net half a point between them when you're looking at the overall value. But both of them catching about an equal bid this week. You go a little bit farther out the curve. We were just saying on the show not too long ago, you got to go pretty far out. You got to go all the way out to pretty much the end of Q1 of next year to find a 20 handle on the term structure. And even then, it was pretty meager. It was like a 2010, something like that. So just ever so slightly north of 20. Obviously, curve shifting up a little bit. We're going to be a little bit higher now. And now we look out into end of Q1, beginning of Q2. Let's go out to April, let's say. Now you're at about 21 in the third. So things looking a little bit frothier. Things looking maybe a little bit more problematic. What did your cohort, the Rock Lobster, say on the option block yesterday? He was saying vol is bid when it shouldn't be. And he says the Dark Lord of the Sith that is lurking out there, again, keeping with our Star Wars metaphor, has yet to reveal himself. Mr. Meatball, when you look at this term structure, do you say the same thing? Do you say there are some lurking unknown unknowns that are being priced in here?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the spread between realized and implied, it's scary. And, you know, when we see this, we typically do get that breakout move. Higher or lower, I don't know, but it does appear that there's something brewing. VIX kind of, we got to get the Thompson boys on maybe next week because VIX is looking like it's starting to swell. And that is a Thompson-esque type of thing to discuss. We haven't had them on it forever because it 100% looks like it's starting to swell up. I should shoot them a text.
I don't even know who these Thompson
now.
Guys are. I don't think I've talked to them in probably since at least pre-pandemic, if not longer. So it has been quite some time since I've talked to a mullet or a Tulum.
Mike's been living in a bomb shelter, and Matt is, happily living his life.
As long as they're all happy. If you're happy in a bomb shelter, who am I to judge? All right, let's keep on rolling. Yeah, listeners, are you kind of intrigued, maybe a little bit concerned by what you're seeing out there in the VIX futures? If so, if you have questions, hit us up. Let us know. We're curious to see what you folks think as we keep on rolling out there into the big dog, listeners. The big dog mothership out there, which is, of course, what brought you all to the dance. It's the VIX options. Looking pretty frothy today. Not quite as active as they were this time yesterday. This time yesterday, we were well north of 600,000 contracts. Pretty close to that right now, but not quite. 543,000 right now. It's still respectable when you look at the ADV. The ADV is 784,000. That continues to tick up as we're heading into the dog days of summer, listeners. Up 11,000 contracts again this week. Again, that is not normal. Seasonally, we should be in the toilet from a vol perspective and from a volume in vol products perspective. And yet that is not the case. So read into that what you will, listeners, but intriguing stuff afoot. Maybe a lot of that also. And yet another data point to add to the notion that there is something else lurking out there. There is something else being priced in. There is perhaps something else on the horizon that the vol market is setting up for him. Is that ominous? I don't know. Read into that. Maybe it's a nice thing. Maybe it's all the vol going away and it's a happy rainbow. But if past is prologue, probably not. Let's keep on rolling out here. Let's look at the top 10. Maybe there's some more happy rainbows to be found out here in our top 10 size positions. And you know what? VIX, even though August rolling off the board, VIX still looking dense, still looking heavy. A lot of size open positions, which is interesting. Shows people are coming to play right now in the vol products. Cost you over 200,000, about 208,000 contracts to break into the top 10. That gets you to the SEP 45s right now. By the way, we are at 8-2 calls over puts out there this week. So we had one more put, I do believe, in our top 10 last week. That went the way of the dodo with August expiration. So now we're back to the old, mostly calls all the time, listeners. Number 10. 208,000 of the SEP 45s. Number 9, 211,000 of the Jan 47 halves. Getting out to Jan. I was just talking about how I like the SEP 47. Excuse me, not the SEP. I like the no 47 halves. Allow me to present the Jans. 211,000 of those bad boys for number 9. Number 8, 213,000 of the SEP 24s. Number 7, 214,000 of the SEP 35s. So getting a little bit of a trend here, listeners. Number 6, 215,000 of the OC 20s. Those are, dare I say it, the most reasonable call on our list. Number 5, 233,000 of the SEP 23s. Number 4, 238,000 of the SEP 13 puts. So our first of 2 puts, and it's all the way up at number 4, listeners. Number 3, 254,000 of my old favorite, the NOV 47 half. So much you can do with the no 47 halves. Number 2, 266,000 of the SEP 60s. Again, the other half of that 1x3, I believe it was. That went up a couple of months ago. And the number one size position. When's the last time we saw this, listeners? We got puts moving into the top spot. Number 1, 339,000 of the SEP 15 puts. So, again, a lot of interesting evolutions in this top 10 of VIX options. It doesn't at all play out the way most people would assume heading into this. When we saw vol coming off just for weeks and weeks and weeks on end and months on end, you would have assumed you would have seen some puts maybe make their way into the top 10 there. The answer was no, 0, 10 for 10 every week calls. And then now that we're finally getting a little bit of a bid to vol, we're seeing size puts make their way into the top 10. Again, it's an interesting evolution, interesting data point to watch out there. So I submit it to you, listeners. What does that mean now that we have 2 puts, including 1 puts at the top of our top 10? Hit us up, let us know. As we keep on rolling, let's go out to today's paper, listeners. See what is tearing it up out there in VIX land today on, again, a respectable day, all things considered. We have about 60,000 of the SEP 16 puts. So once again, 16 puts and just puts in general, leading the dance out there, taking the number 1 spot. Number 2, we have almost 41,000 of the SEP 17 puts. Number 3, about 40,000 as well of the SEP 24 calls. So I haven't looked at the paper to see, but is that maybe a bit of a risk reversal in there with a put kicker? Lines up kind of like that. Number 4, 25,000 of the SEP 18 puts, and rounding out the top 5 today, about 24,000 of the SEP 19 puts. So mostly a put strip with some 24 calls thrown in for some extra juice. Yesterday, listeners, we were rocking and rolling out there. Not quite a million, but pretty darn close. You'll know when we were well north of 600K by the time of the option block, listeners. I kind of thought we might get there almost. 972 was the final tally yesterday, listeners. And the big dog yesterday, 90,000 exactly of the Feb doubles, the Feb 55s. This paper, listeners, I don't know, starting to feel reminiscent of what we used to talk about on this show maybe a year ago. The only difference is the strikes are low. We're talking about the doubles and the 60s and the 47 halves rather than the pars and the 90s and the 115s and all those quote-unquote garbage strikes we used to talk about a year ago. But that said, I mean, obviously yesterday was a bit of an aberration, so folks are going to pile into upside, but still, these strikes in aggregate starting to feel a little bit reminiscent of what we used to talk about here on the show. Right behind it, number 2, 85,000 of the SEP 60s, our old friends out there. Number 3, 60,000 of the Jan 45s. Number 4, 37,000 of the SEP 15 puts. And rounding out the top 5, again, 4 for 5 on the call front on Thursday, 36,000 of the SEP 40. So just a dense day out there yesterday. Wednesday, looking lighter by comparison, but still a respectable day. Pretty much right at that ADV. 772,000 contracts on the tape on Wednesday. The big dog on Wednesday, 57,000 of the SEP 16 puts, followed by 44,000 for number 2 of the SEP 15 puts. So maybe some rolling action out there. Of course, those are the 2 most popular strikes, so it could just be trading up a storm out there, listeners. Number 3, 37,000. Back to Nove. The Nove 21s. Interesting. You like that strike, listeners? Nove 21 calls. Intriguing stuff. Followed by number 4, 35,000 of the SEP 22s. And rounding out the top 5, you got to get one of these in there somewhere. This week, it is 32,000 of the October 70s. So if the Nove and Jan 47 halves are not optimistic enough for you, even the SEP 60s or the Feb doubles, allow me to present the October 70s going up about 32, almost 33,000 times yesterday. Tuesday, the big boy of the week, hitting that 1 million mark and then some. 1.13 million contracts on the tape for Tuesday. One thing VIX likes, it's a little bit of whipsaw action, and we have seen that out there this week. So the volume's going to come when we're whipsawing all over the place. 92,000 of the AUG 15 puts going up. Of course, you have expiration going up as well. So the day leading into expiration, usually a pretty active beast. So you got that 1-2 punch. It's going to lead to some numbers. 92,000 for the number 1 spot, August 15 puts, followed by number 2, 72,000 of the SEP 20s. Number 3, 62,000 of the August 17 calls. Number 4, 54,000 of the SEP 15 puts. And rounding out the top five, 53,000, looks like the exact same number. So maybe we got a vertical or a bit of a roll. Like they're literally down to the same contract size of the SEP 14 put. So intriguing stuff there. And Monday, no slouch as well. It seems like so far today might be the light day of the week. Monday, 860,000 contracts on the tapes. Just a dense week on the VIX volume front. The big dog on Monday, 75,000 of the Feb 50s. So you don't like those Feb doubles? How about some Feb 50s, listeners? For number one, 75,000. Number two, 74,000 of the AUG 15 puts. Number three, 35,000 of the AUG 25s. Number four, 30,000 of the AUG 14 half puts. And rounding out the top five on a surprisingly active Monday, 28,000 of the AUG 16 calls. Mr. Meatball, I just broke down a tsunami of paper out there this week. It's just, I think the word to describe VIX this week is dense. There's a lot of paper going up on a lot of strikes, sir. A ton to parse, a ton to catch your fancy. What caught your eye out there in VIX options this week?
Yeah, there was just a ton of upside volume this week. Rolling, adjusting, opening new positions. VIX was extremely busy. Kind of nothing insane, but very busy. And we kind of see that continuing today. There's a lot of paper going up. Some big put spread. You got some puts trading, some put calendars. The 24 calls going up for some size. I think yesterday we saw some really interesting volume of the 45s versus the 55s versus the 60s. So there's some poking about in the volatility index.
Poking about, you say?
Indeed.
I like that. Poking about in the vol index. How about that notion? Are you starting to feel it? I mean, obviously we had some red on the screen this week, so that's going to spur a little bit of upside. But we are seeing the return of not quite as optimistic strikes as last year, but some pretty out there strikes. Are you starting to get a whiff? Are you starting to get maybe the taste of some of what we saw last year, where it was just out of the money call palooza for days? So are we starting to get a little bit of that flavor back?
They've been a lot more reasonable. They've been in the 40s and 50s and 60s instead of the 90s. But yeah, we're definitely seeing this week in particular a noticeable uptick. And VIX is a excellent kind of dirty hedge against a lot of credit risk. So it makes some sense.
Yeah, listeners, so if you thought those pars and 115s and all that nonsense was just too crazy for your blood last year, the doubles, the 47 halves, the 50s, the 60s, roughly cutting in half the outlandish nature out there. But still some interesting strikes. It wasn't all crazy. You got SEP 20s in there. You got NOV 21s. You got some intriguing strikes if you are indeed looking at some upside out there. Speaking of looking at things, we got in our live chat, we got Nichols. I was joking about being dizzy from all the head fakes in the market. He says, I am dizzy, all caps, from all of these head fakes. Yeah, I feel you. We're whipping all over the place out there. It's that season. So if you're not down for a little bit of the old kind of whipsaw action, maybe you leave the amusement park for a little bit, because we're going to be doing this dance, I have a feeling, for a little while. Let's go on out now to some of the other vol products, see what's lighting it up. And you know what? SVIX can come in. We had our buddy, the once and future Dr. VIX, on the show last week. He's the biggest SVIX proponent that I know. He put pretty much everything he owned in this thing. And it worked out. This name had quite the run, threatening 30 out there for a little while. Obviously, with vol popping, SVIX going to go the other way. And that's pretty much what we're seeing out there right now. Down a little over 2, about 2.1 handles on the week at about a 25.80 right now. We asked him on the show last week, and he said he's pretty much he has divested of all of its SVIX. I think he mostly has done so through some aggressive call overrides. So if SVIX continues to drop, then I suppose he could be back in. He could be not be called away at the end of the day. But he has said he has turned to the dark side. He is short this market now. So intriguing stuff out there. I'm sure a lot of people are probably waiting to get back in for SVIX at a much more reasonable level than threatening a 30. But nonetheless, a lot of people aren't waiting out there today. Some paper out there, nearly 4,000, about 3,500 contracts on the tape right now, which isn't a ton. But then again, you look at the ADV out there in SVIX, and it's only about 2,100. That's coming down as well. It's down about 200, but we're seeing obviously a little bit better paper today. Looks like the big dog out there today. About 500 of the SEP 25 puts going up, followed by about 400 of the AUG 27 puts. So a little bit of put paper out there today. Not surprising, it's given up about 2 handles. What are the size positions out there in SVIX right now? Let's just do a top 5, listeners, because the volume here not quite there yet. Number 5, 1,200 of the SEP 28s. Number 4, 1,200 as well of the SEP 27, so probably some vertical action there. A 1 point wide vertical. Does that float your boat, listeners? Number 3, this is the strike. This is the trade that we roundly mocked. A lot of our listeners mocked. It was ridiculous when they opened it. 2,100 of the SEP 35s. We thought these were absolutely absurd. And in fact, I'm going to go pull up right now exactly when those were opened. But we joked about them. A lot of our listeners joked about them. We just thought, man, what are you doing? These were opened, a lot of them back in March, when SVIX was 14. And we just thought 35 strike. They did, they got some more going recently, but that's when they started piling into these things back in March. And we just thought 35, and then lo and behold, these folks were laughing pretty much all the way to the bank. Didn't quite get there, but you got the lion's share of that move. Now, it didn't happen as maybe quickly as they would have hoped, but intriguing stuff nonetheless. There's still 2,100 open, so it is possible that they could have missed their window by now. But just the fact that those even got into the conversation is just insanity. I mean, we were laughing openly when those went up, and hey, goes to show we're man enough to admit when we're wrong. Listen, number 2, 2,100 of the AUG 9 puts. And the big dog out there this week, listeners, 2,300 of the SEP 10 puts. Mr. Meatball, we've talked before about how SVIX needs a weekly. I do think that would be a huge boon to this product. But outside of that, we are starting to see some movement, are starting to see some action. We saw a brief flirtation with those SEP 35s. It doesn't seem like we're going to get there right now, but hey, who knows? This could change on a dime even today. What's going on out there in the land of the pit in SVIX these days? Anything catching your eye, sir?
Yeah, I had a call override on, and I unwound that. This thing starts to get cheaper. I'm going to probably do the same thing. I pulled a Russell, bought the stock, sold the 30 calls. I intend to let this thing get a little cheaper, and then I'm going to jump on board and re-enter.
That's right. You've been a fan of the underlying for a while, less so the options. But yeah, that's right. You've been kind of on the underlying tip from the beginning. So a decent tip to be on, at least in the early days. We'll see how that holds up right now. Listeners, I know a lot of you were writing in. I think a lot of you, it seems like 17, the high teens was the level that shook a lot of you out. You started really overwriting once we got up to that level. So a lot of you were maybe lamenting the second leg. You didn't get a chance to participate. But hey, we're coming back to earth. If you haven't been called away, maybe you can re-up a little bit of the old override action out there, listeners. But intriguing stuff. The saga that is SVIX continues. Maybe not quite the marquee player that everyone and everyone really hoped for when this thing was announced. And certainly some people were just all the controversy around this thing. Can't believe they would approve it. So far, still pretty much a tempest in a teapot. But intriguing stuff nonetheless. Also intriguing, and I had kind of washed my hands of this one as well, UVIX, because it didn't seem like they wanted to do anything with it. It was gently drifting to zero, got somewhere around a 3.5 before this recent resurgence of vol got it back up north of 4, about 460 right now, up about 0.6 of a point. Intriguing stuff out there because the ADV is 12,000. That's up 1,000, so that's moving in the right direction. But even more interesting is that there's 32,000 contracts have traded out there today. So some folks going to town out there in UVIX today. Let's go see what they're up to, listeners. There's about 10,000, almost 11,000 of the AUG 4 calls expiring next week on the 25th that have gone up today. Looks like paper is probably overwriting the lion's share of those. So maybe some folks, with good reason, perhaps fading this move north of the 4 handle. For some size prints. Right behind it, we have almost 10,000, about 9,000 of the SEP 4 half calls. And these are actually expiring on the 8th, so these are the weeklies as well. It's like paper may be buying those. So We could have a bit of a roll maybe from the AUG to those, or it could be, it doesn't seem like it went up as a spread. It just seems like it's unrelated two-directional paper out there. What you like to see in a product like this? I'm just looking right now. I don't see any size spreads going up out there today. It seems like it was all unrelated paper. But a lot of paper going up out there today in UVIX. Let's do a quick top 5 in UVIX. This is obviously going to change after today's paper. Number 5, 2,300 of the AUG 4 halves. Again, most of this going the way of the dodo today. Number 4, 2,500 of the Jan 10s. Number 3, 2,900 of the AUG 4 puts. Number 3, 3,900 of the AUG 4 calls. And rounding out the top 5, 8,600 of the AUG 4 calls expiring next week. So that is the top open position. So this could be someone just bailing on those I'll have to go look and see. Let's see how much OI do we have out there. No, those are opening today. So I think the OI is about 8,000. So if you're putting up 10, almost 11,000, probably opening. But intriguing stuff here nonetheless. Mr. Meatball, we've kind of dismissed UVIX once it's sub $4. What are you going to do with it? But it does seem like some folks are really slinging it hard out there today. Anything catching your eye out there in the land of UVIX, sir?
Not really. This thing just needs to reverse split and do what it does. It's going to need a lot of help to get back to $10. So unless we're going to get an extended move, this thing ain't going anywhere. We do have a little bit of pecking on calls here today, but nothing that says this thing's going to take off.
You have your feelers, your tendrils out there in the vol space, sir. Have you heard any rumor of we're actually going to get this freaking reverse? I mean, what are they doing with this thing?
I don't know. They've had some decent success with this. It does trade, certainly on the stock side. But it needs it's nice to be a little more. Today's option volume is actually pretty decent, about 31,000. Open interest is up to about 110,000. Stock volume's kind of crept higher to today's volume. It's over 10 million. Average volume over 7. So if they reverse split this thing, this thing is a beast. If we get a pop, could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, there is some potential for this thing. And speaking of fun, looking in our chat, we've got Options Queen. She's pretty savvy. She says she's slinging some UVIX again. So there you go. They lured her to the dark side. Option God says me too. So we got a couple of people out there. Maybe you're part of the crew that's overriding all these AUG 4s expiring next week. Interesting. So some of our hardcores out there slinging a little bit of UVIX. Are you back in UVIX? I mean, it's not a huge move out there, but it's north of 4 again. There are some things you could do. There's some potential here. If they put this thing back up to 20 and above, man, imagine what you could do with this thing. But I don't know. For whatever reason, they're just not there yet. You know what is there, though, listeners, is UVXY getting some juice back, getting a lot of its reverse split back, up 2 handles from where it was this time last week, hanging out at about a 19.5 right now. And you know what? You get a little bit of that juice back, and some of these products that people love to fade, they will reward you with paper, listeners. If you build it, they will come, and they're coming today. 161,000 contracts on the tape. That compares to the ADV, which is only 129,000, and that itself is up 20,000 from this time last week. So, again, you put some juice, you put some meat on the bone in these things. You don't reverse split it, to 20 or 25 and then let it just erode to nothing. You put some actual meat on the bones out here. People are going to trade these things. So, what do I know? I've just been slinging these things forever and watching them and talking about them, but I digress. Let's go out to our top positions out there in UVXY. Number 5, almost 21,000 of the AUG 2s. So you got some funky strikes open here. Number 3, 21,000 of the SEP 3s. Number 4, 25,000 of the SEP 2s. Now, this is all pre-split adjusted. The Jan doubles, the SEP 8s. This is all nonsense paper. So this is all still left over from last time, listeners. We haven't had, again, because people aren't really trading it yet a ton, we haven't had a lot to really come along to supplant this stuff. So intriguing stuff. There is some paper obviously going up today, so maybe some of that will come along and kick this to the curb out there if I can get my system to play ball with me again. There we go. All right, UVXY. That would be the ticker. All right, the big dog out there Today in UVXY, we've got similar size to UVIX. That's weird. We had about 10,600 and UVIX is 10,847 in UVXY. This time it's the puts, though. It's the AUG 19.5 puts expiring today, opening nearly 11,000 times today. Again, we're hanging out exactly at that strike. People do love to play close to the fire with this thing. We're hanging out right at a strike around expiration. They will dive in. Looks like someone bought nearly 4,000 of these things this morning for 24 cents. So far, they're not looking that great. Looks like another 3,000 went up for 27 cents. About an hour and change later, maybe they were getting the hell out of Dodge, taking their 3 cents and running. Can't blame them. But either way, a lot of back and forth on these 19.5 puts out here in UVXY here. Mr. Meatball, anything catching your eye in the looking a little bit juicier UVXY this week, sir?
Again, it's $20 now. Thus it gets some more robust volume. It's doing some decent volume today. Moving around, there's been some pretty nice action in the options. Let me get those open for you in 1 second. Come on. And I'll tell you in 1 second. Yeah, you've got some making a pretty strong bet, but then you also have call buyers for today. So there's some action both ways on this one with a lot of people playing this thing to move. Almost, I'm looking, Mark, all the paper expires today. Almost all of it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like everyone just loves to play really fast and loose with this thing on expiration day. It's like, and they have for some time. This was kind of a 0-day name before 0 day was hot in the SPX. People would just love to dive into this name right at the tail end of it. So it's kind of been a use case for this product since its inception. But intriguing stuff out here. Are you one of these listeners? You like to pop a little bit of Tums with your trading action? Well, then, there you go. Check out some of the paper going up right at the fire today in UVXY. There's going to be some happy campers, going to be some pretty sad campers out here. I said before, these products, they can be heartbreakers. We've seen it so many times, so much OI, doing so well, then a move happens the last couple of days of expiration week, maybe the day of expiration, and it wipes all that OI off the table, and it just, it's like clockwork out here, so if you're playing in these, just be prepared. Let's go on out to the Meatball's new favorite name. In fact, I think if he had a third kid, he would name it VXX because he loves it so much. VXX at a 26 when we kicked off the show, up a little over 1.5 points, about 1.6 points from where it was this time last week. And again, kind of keeping the narrative alive that if you get these things a little bit frothier, a little bit juicier, people will come to play. If you juice them up, they will come. The ADV is 88,000 now. It's up about 3,000. So threatening 90K, which is respectable. Again, not quite the days we used to see a 400K out there beating VIX options, but it's respectable. And today already 78,000 contracts on the tape. So some decent action out there. Let's look at the top 5 out here in VXX first from the size positions. Number 5, we got 21,000 of the AUG 21 puts. So those going the way of the dodo today. And if you're loading up on those, seems like probably a bit of a bridge too far. Number 4, 22,000 of the SEP 20 puts. Again, surprise, surprise. It's all puts here, listeners. Again, probably a bit of a bridge too far. Number 3, 23,000 of the AUG 24 puts. Closer, but also no cigar. Numero 2, 23,000 of the SEP 22 puts. Got some time there. And then number 1, 25,000 of the AUG 22 puts. Again, unless this thing just falls out of bed in the next couple hours, doesn't seem like. In fact, I'm looking at the top 10 and everything here. Top 10, we have 8,200 of the AUG 27 puts. That's the only one that seems like it has a decent chance of paying off. And again, past is prologue, people are usually buying these things, listeners. So the rest of this top 10 seems like it's a bit of a road to nowhere, but we shall see. Got some SEP in there, so you got some time on some of that. Today's big paper, what's driving all that volume today? 5,500 of the AUG 26 puts, again, expiring today. We were right at 26. This is what people love to do in these things. They just love to give themselves agita, as my Italian grandmother used to say out there. Just dive it into these crazy at-the-money puts. with a few hours to go. That's some good living out there. Listen, number 2, we got 5,200 of the AUG 26 half calls, and number 3, 3,800 of the AUG 26 half puts. So are you seeing a bit of a theme here, listeners? That's what people love in these products. It's interesting. It's a use case that is outside of the 0-day SPX, is kind of almost unique to these products. People love to just dive in and play them right up until the wire out there, which is fascinating. Mr. Meatball, like I said, I think if you had a third child, I think VXX would be the name. What are you slinging out there in your new favorite products, sir?
Yeah, it's definitely, pulled back a little bit. Futures never kind of left being in a contango. I think it's probably due for a little bit of a pullback. But we still have this kind of overarching kind of VIX potential swell. So, if you're going to be slinging VXX, you got to be fast and nimble. You can't be flat-footed because this thing, it's expensive enough to have some teeth to its moves. So you just gotta be on top of it. Today's action has been mostly puts expiring today. They love the 26 puts, Mark. So be ready.
Oh, I'm ready. And it's like our chat's ready too. They disagree with me. They say you would name your third child Baby Meatball. So what do you prefer, VXX or Baby Meatball, sir, for child names?
Baby Meatball. What would be a nickname for Baby Meatball?
I don't know.
BM? I don't think so.
I don't know if the wife's going to go for that one.
Yeah, I don't think so.
He already comes prepackaged with a nickname, though, so it's going to save the kids on the playground some time. It's all about that, right? Got to save the kids on the playground some time. Speaking of saving you some time, we endeavored to do that every week, listeners, by providing you a literal boatload. If there was a boat, it would be full of earnings vol data. So great earnings volatility data for you folks out there. It's completely for free because we like you folks. TheOptionsInsider.com. Click on the Options News and Articles tab. We're doing some updates and some upgrades behind the scenes. You folks are banging away at our site. You're breaking some stuff. So we're fixing it all behind the scenes. So if some links aren't working or you see some stuff missing out there right now, just let us know or be patient, because it's all literally as we're talking, all being upgraded behind the scenes. So, web fun. You fix one thing, you break 10 other things. So if the particular link you're looking for, I should say, is not there, just be patient or let us know. We'll endeavor to fix it for you in a timely fashion. But yeah, this data should all be there, and a lot popping off still this week. We had Home Depot. We had the big retailers this week, Target and Walmart. People, they like to look at CPI numbers and a lot of these kind of academic measures of inflation. But, big names like Target and Walmart, the boots on the ground retail, that's where the rubber meets the road for this stuff. So a lot of people look at those as bellwethers for inflation, as well as some broad fast food names like McDonald's for food costs and things like that. So it was an interesting mixed bag. Meatball kind of talked about them. They kind of took them both in interesting directions this week based off their numbers. Target kind of screwing the pooch. Walmart not so much, but again, kind of moving in surprising directions of those announcements as well. So a lot to unpack there. We had our old friend Stone Cold out there this week, AMAT, and then Deere. Man, they're coming for Deere. Another weird one because they were kind of giving some upbeat guidance, but it sounds like the farmers not so much. And so the street going with the farmers today and not with Deere, and taking them to the woodshed out there as well. Luckily for you, we have some updated earnings move results, and earnings season. Let me hit on a couple of these really quickly. Then we got to get the heck out of Dodge. Got to get some of you on the Vol voicemail as well. So really quickly, Stone Cold yesterday after the bell, 1334 is where they were trading. They were, they were pricing in 9.9%, so about 10%. They delivered 7.5%, so a little bit of underperformance. Walmart before the bell on the 17th, they were pricing in 3.5%. They delivered, get this, 0.7%. So a lot of underperformance so far. Now, again, this is immediately post-earnings, listeners. If you expand that holding period, things are going to change. But we can't have infinite holding periods to have something to analyze for you. We have to cut it off some point. So looking at it there, we have AMAT in there. We have Zoom. We have Dick's Sporting Goods. These are all popping off. Coming up next week, AMAT was this week. We have Zoom next week, all kinds of fun stuff. So if you want to see what they're pricing in, NVIDIA, Snowflake, still some big bangers to come, what they're pricing in compared to the past, all this other fun, how the season's stacking up, some fun trades we're doing against it, and a whole bunch more. TheOptionsInsider.com is the place to go as we get on into a little bit of the old volatility voicemail.
It's time to share your thoughts and opinions with your fellow volatility traders. It's time to check the volatility voicemail. Make your voice heard by dialing 779-669-4VOL. posting a comment on the optionsinsider.com, sending an email to questions@theoptionsinsider.com, or posting your questions to twitter.com/options or facebook.com/theoptionsinsider.
All right, everybody. We're getting all kinds of baby names with a meatball now. How about just VIX for your kid? I don't know. I've created a monster here, Mr. Meatball, and I apologize here with our chat. But there you go. A lot of great suggestions for you if you are indeed in the market. As we keep on rolling here, let's go on out to our question of the week. Last week we asked you, hey, is the meme stock frenzy back? Yes or no? Very simple. You guys came out ever so slightly on the no tip, 54.5% for no, and then 45.5% for yes. So slightly no. Intriguing. If you agree, disagree, and that was your chance last week to really weigh in. This week, your chance to weigh in is on our revisitation of our question of the week that we kick off the year with usually. We asked you if you had to buy a 10% out of the money call on one of the following, which one would you choose? Beginning of the year, 43% of you chose the S&P 500. We asked the same question now through the end of the year, 10% out of the money call on one of these four asset classes, S&P 500, Bitcoin, WTI, or VIX. Which one would you choose? Mr. Meatball, sir, which way are you going? Which way do you think our audience is going?
But you have to hold it, right?
You have to hold it.
I went crude.
Are you still staying crude?
I'm staying crude.
You think our audience is going crude?
I think they're going Bitcoin.
Oh, interesting. Think of it. So we don't have a bunch of crude dudes. We have a bunch of Bitcoin dudes. All right, where is my poll? If my producers, there we go. My producers will be so kind. There it is. Right now, with a couple hours left, listeners, get in there right now. SPX and SPY taking it 37%, followed by WTI number 2, 29.6%, VIX 25.9%, and then Bitcoin bringing up the rear 7.4%. I like this handle, Investor Gadget. He says market should continue to decline at least until mid-October, and oil should move up towards $90. So, yeah, there you go. Right now, by the way, green running away with it on our lightsaber poll. Only about a minute left on that one. 2/3 of you choosing green, 16.7% for red, and about 16% for other. No love for blue, so no joy for blue out there, listeners. You know, we got this question about crypto vol, but kind of coming up again, so I think we'll save that for next week there, Chain 3. As we keep on rolling, it is time to head into the crystal ball.
It's time to peer into the future and reveal what the volatility gods hold in store. It's time to look into the crystal ball.
All right, everybody, welcome to the crystal ball. By the way, green did just take it. That just expired. It was a very short poll. And, yeah, green taking it with about 2/3 of the... So a lot of you folks liking yourself a little bit of Yoda and or, you know, obviously, mostly Yoda out there. So intriguing stuff. Also intriguing out there in the vol space. Like I said, no 17 handles for us on the panel last week. It was myself and the Rock Lobster and the once in future and now present Dr. VIX. I was at about a 16 1/3. The Rock Lobster 16.75. Russell taking the dark side at 15.65. Spoiler alert, no joy for any of us. We're at about a 17.60 right now. Looking at some of your listener and chat comments, I don't see any 17 handles there. Obviously, our producers have the full list. They will go through all of it. They just kind of surface some of the closer ones. You got 15 handles, a lot of 15 handles. A lot of you were feeling some fade last week. No joy there. That means, Mr. Meatball, no winner for this week, so I'll let you choose. I'm feeling charitable as a host today.
Hey, what did I pick 2 weeks ago? Because I want to say I got close to nailing it.
For today, 2 weeks ago?
Yes. Yeah.
So if you're expanding your purview from 2 weeks ago, let's go out and see. Let me see if I could find that data point here very quickly. 2 weeks ago, you were at 15 1/4. Well, that's me. No, that's you. You were at 15 1/4 the last time you were on the show. And that was your guess was for August 11th. So that was the week before, August 4th. You were at 15 1/4. So I don't think you had any upside there, sir.
No. All right. Well, I'll go. I got to tell you, I think today you're going to see the vol pull back today. And maybe Monday, and then maybe we get a refresh of some of this. I'm going to go bullish, believe it or not. And I'm going to go to 1991.
Ooh, an excellent year. An intriguing vol prognostication. Kissing that 20 handle. We got kissed to 19 this morning. Now, that's some juice. That's some effervescence. You know, I was feeling a little more myself. I don't know if I'm feeling that much. Listeners, are you feeling nearly a 20 handle? I'm curious. Get it in there. Nichols, no victory for you this week. You had like a 2-week streak going there. So you got to break the streak some point. Otherwise, you're going to clean out all of our fabulous prices here. All right. I'm feeling more juice as well. We're at about a 1760 right now. I don't think I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind his prognostication at all. I'm going to say an 1845. So there you go, listeners. That is your accurate vol prediction for this time next week. All right, everybody. That is going to do it for Volatility Views this week. That is going to conclude your on-demand broadcast week with us this week. If you're hanging out on the pro side, we'll be back in a little bit for Options Oddities. What the hell went up in Farfetch today? Spoiler alert, it was a lot, as well as a bunch of other stuff. We're going to break it all down on Options Oddities in a little bit. So join us for that. If you're hanging out in the live, we'll pump some fun stuff in there. We'll be back in a little bit for that. If you're not in the live yet, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. You get access to Options Oddities and all the other cool stuff I mentioned at the top of the show. And before we go, Mr. Meatball, if folks want to check out all the cool stuff you have cooking, where should they go? What should they do?
Go to optionpit.com. I'm doing the Trader's Edge every single day. You can get all sorts of insights on what's happening with volatility in the marketplace every single day at optionpit.com.
I like it. You did like a little jingle. .com. You make a little jingle. Remember you used to have that guy on your website back in the early days kind of doing the spiel? You should bring him back and do a nice little jingle.
I wonder where he is.
I don't know where you found that guy, but he was my favorite spokesman for Option Pit by far. Check it out, optionpit.com. Maybe they'll bring that guy back, listeners. You just wanted to learn vol from a guy. Like, he just seemed like a nice, fun, easygoing, engaging fellow. If you want to see him for yourself and the rest of the folks, I mean, Mark and the Rock Lobster, are they quite as easygoing and engaging? I don't know. That guy was pretty easygoing. But find out for yourselves. Optionpit.com, the place to go to learn more. We got to get on out of here. It's going to conclude your broadcast week with us. Thank you for joining us for this show and throughout the week. Hope you had a good, a fun, a safe, a profitable trading week. Have some fun on the weekend, decompress, get out of this crazy whipsaw madness. See you back here on Monday for the option block, all the way through to next Friday, another episode of Volatility Views. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.